So welcome and thank you for joining us here on another Blueshift AMA. This is a stand-up with the CTO session with Igor Strukov, the CTO of Blueshift, built on Melcometer, live on Cardano C1 and also Algorand A1 and soon to be Carver as well, along with many other chains in the future. And of course, this brand new Blues chain, this cross-chain protocol, which I'd love to share with you guys so we can learn a little bit more about it. Now, if you guys want to catch up on this, if you missed something, didn't quite understand it, we have all of our AMA series on Spotify and on YouTube. You can search for it, Blueshift, or on Spotify, search for Blueshift Talks, and you can find all of our AMAs that we've done in the past there. We've spoken to Shima Capital, we've spoken to Multi-Chain Seller, and all these absolutely fantastic partners that we have, as well as Melcometer and all their team as well. So lots of really cool protocol level partners that we've had AMA sessions with, and really good people to learn from. But Igor, welcome to this episode, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Stand Up with the CTO.
Hello, Pete. Thank you. Glad to see everybody.
Okay. So let's get into this one here and get a little bit of an understanding of what on earth is going on. What is this cross-chain protocol that Blueshift is building at the moment?
Yeah, so to start with, the last year was a wonderful year for Blueshift because we launched our protocol on Melcometer mainnets C1 and A1. And this year should be even better because we are now entering the cross-chain scene, which in general, I think is one of the major trends in crypto industry and in DeFi currently, and in this year specifically. So what we are planning to do, we plan to launch a brand new cross-chain protocol, which will be an essential part of Blueshift protocol, and actually which will be the Blueshift protocol itself, that will become not just the standard DEX protocol that runs on several blockchains, 2 blockchains currently, and Kala coming up, and of course more blockchains will join, but cross-chain is a new dimension for Blueshift because we will allow swaps between any chains that we support. And what is more interesting, we will allow liquidity provisioning on all the chains we support into a so-called cross-chain portfolios, where all the liquidity will be aggregated and seen as a one portfolio, but the liquidity will stay on several blockchains.
I thought we had this conversation yesterday about this, and I thought that was really something really important to highlight. It's that the new protocol that you're building isn't its own blockchain itself, where it have its own tokens on there, and we're not having any like a wrapped assets on there or anything like that. Not like what we're seeing with bridges coming over when we see Ethereum, ETH come over as a wrapped asset onto Cardano. And this is like a major differentiator between what Blueschain is and what is existing out there at the moment to get a different type of ecosystem token to another one. Can you explain the idea and concepts around this?
Yes, that's right. We do not need wrapping of assets to move them between chains. Actually, we do not move them. The tokens stay on the chains where they are native, but we allow making swaps, providing tokens in one chain and receiving the result on other chain without any intermediate tokens or wrapping of tokens. This is possible because we are building a separate blockchain that we call Blueschain, which is built on top of Cosmos SDK. And this blockchain actually holds consistent view of all portfolios and transactions that we have cross-chain. So actually how it works from the major point of view, first you initiate a transaction on a source blockchain by providing your tokens to Blueshift smart contract, and then the Blueschain actually detects your transaction in source chain and checking all the conditions, of course, and making all the calculations by the Blueshift protocol, it initiates a transaction, corresponding transaction in the target chain. All this works for you as a one transaction, and after it is completed in both source blockchain and in Blues chain, you will see the result on the target chain.
That is absolutely fantastic. And this does away with bridges at the moment. Like, for example, people in the Cardano ecosystem would be very aware of how when Milcometer launched, we had the Nomad Bridge seller multi-chain come into the Milcometer ecosystem. But then there was that really big hack on not just Nomad, but like other bridges in other ecosystems. But bridges seem to be like a weak point, or a point that hackers would try and look for exploits and vulnerabilities for it. So from what my understanding, Blues Chains doesn't use bridges. Is that correct? Can we talk about that and the differences, and how Blues Chain actually benefits from not using bridges?
Yeah, indeed. Blues chain is independent from bridges, but of course we can use bridged assets as we do currently on Milcomida, but it is not essential for Blueshift operation because we can work with native tokens, and as I can see in the future, the need of wrapped bridged assets will be less, because people actually will not need them in such a way that they need them now, because currently, for example, you cannot have stable coins on Milcomida, for example, because there are no native stable coins there. And the only way for you to swap something to stable coins is to use wrapped stable coins by multi-chain or seller currently. And yes, there was a problem with the third bridge, Nomad, which also supported stablecoins, but it was hacked, and that's why people actually are very cautious about bridges now. What is a drawback of bridges is that once you bridge your assets to some chain and you hold these wrapped assets, you only are safe until the bridge itself is safe, because you are holding not the native tokens, but the tokens that are wrapped and guaranteed only by this bridge. And that's what happened with Nomad. There are still Nomad stablecoins there on Milcomida, but they, of course, do not cost $1 as they costed as it was before the hack. That's why swap directly of native assets is much safer, because when you get native tokens, you do not depend on bridges, and even you do not depend on the Blueshift protocol, because it is only used for a swap. And after that, you hold tokens that have native value, and that cannot be hacked in such a way that bridges can. But of course, this does not mean that all bridges are vulnerable. Of course, there are very safe and reliable bridges like multi-chain, for example, which is our partner. So of course you can use bridges, but in the nutshell, of course, there are some risks inherent to bridges.
Yes, not to take away from our current partners there, but they do a fantastic job in the ecosystem, moving liquidity around to different chains at the moment. So it's not a bad thing. It's just a different thing that we're taking an approach here at Blueshift. Now, you mentioned it also a little bit before that Blues Chain is built on the Cosmos SDK. Now, I only came across this last year when you yourself introduced it to me. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners on this AMA here that don't know what that is, or what other protocols or blockchains are building on top of Cosmos SDK. Can we talk a little bit about that and give some other examples of people and companies building on Cosmos?
Yeah, so Cosmos SDK is a very good framework for building your own so-called application-specific blockchains. So it is an open source code written in Go language that everybody and every company can use to build its own blockchain. That's the main advantage of this, because you can create your own blockchain without making all the steps needed to make it operational from scratch. And what Cosmos SDK also gives is a built-in and ready implementation of a proof of stake consensus that is called Tendermint, which is a very good, fast, and reliable consensus mechanism, which is taken out of the box when you use Cosmos SDK, which is great. And that's why we used it to build our Blues chain. And that's why there are about 100 projects. I cannot say the exact number, but there are lots of them. And some of them are very well known. For example, you may know Binance Chain that was built to support, it was built by Binance actually to support decentralized transactions. And this chain is built on top of Cosmos SDK as well. And more popular Binance Smart Chain, or BNB chain as it is called now, is actually like a co-chain to Binance chain that is built on top of Cosmos SDK. And of course, there are also lots of projects that use Cosmos SDK, and also there are Cosmos-based blockchains that are connected through Cosmos Hub. But Blues chain is not currently connected to Cosmos Hub, and there are no plans to do it in the near future. But of course, we can do it later.
It just means more work for you guys. There's priorities first of getting everything up and running, I guess. And there's also the roadmap for Blueshift in general. So one thing at a time. I'm pretty sure a lot of people have heard of Binance and BNB chain, etc. And that's all built on the Cosmos SDK. And the other really cool thing about Cosmos is that it brings in that developer level ecosystem with the EVM, or Ethereum virtual machine. So all those developers out there are already building on Solidity, developing with Solidity, can easily pick it up. And essentially that's what the Blueshift team has done. Now, in regards to competition and competitors in the ecosystem, is there anyone else that is doing something similar to what Blueshift is doing with the cross-chain swaps? Is there anything else out there that people can look at and get an idea and understanding of what Blueshift is trying to achieve here?
Yeah, of course. There are protocols, and I expect that more of them will come up this year that also use the idea of cross-chain swaps without wrapping of assets. And one of the examples is a Symbiosis protocol, which we also are well aware and stay connected with them. They are actually solving the same problem in a slightly different way, because they do not have cross-chain portfolios. Instead, they have intermediate stable coins that they use to actually transfer value from one chain to another. And also they rely on liquidity of decentralized exchanges on the target chains to provide liquidity for swaps. In this case, we of course use our own liquidity that we have on Blueshift, and we get rid of these intermediate assets because our Blues chain protocol allows us to directly swap between tokens in a cross-chain portfolio without intermediate tokens. And also what our cross-chain portfolios give is possibility to aggregate liquidity from different blockchains. For example, if we have USDT token on several blockchains as a native token, Blueshift can be launched on all of these blockchains, and on all of these blockchains, people can add USDT to a cross-chain portfolio, as an example, And all this liquidity of USDT will be summarized in a cross-chain portfolio, like it was in one reserve, though it stays on different blockchains. This is possible because of our virtual pairs mechanism that we have in Blueshift from the beginning. And here it is also very useful because it can aggregate liquidity of all the blockchains and make the price slippage lower and the capital efficiency higher by aggregating the liquidity.
So there's a couple of levels of capital efficiency there. One with compared to Symbiosis, we don't have that intermediary token in there, and then plus the virtual pairs, which aggregates the liquidity of tokens across the ecosystem there, so that you can have more liquidity to do swaps, and you have less slippage. So yeah, it's overall more capital efficient.
That's right.
Absolutely brilliant. Now, there's another term we didn't talk about this in our prep talk, but I've spoken to other projects about a term called atomic swaps. Is that anywhere in comparison to what Blueshift is building here, or is atomic swaps like a bit of an older tech compared to what the ideas and concepts are coming up these days?
Yeah, actually, atomic swaps is another way of how to achieve this cross-chain functionality. What actually they use usually, they use so-called hash HTLC contracts, hashed time lock contracts. That means that to achieve cross-chain functionality, you first lock your assets in one blockchain and get some hash code that can be verified on other blockchain to release some tokens there. In general, this is a very strong idea, but it has also some weaknesses. And one of them is still the need of reliable transfer of these hash codes between blockchains, and also there are certain problems with verifying them and checking the time constraints and so on. Actually, Blueschain is like a step forward because it in general use similar idea, but in a more elaborated way, because we not just transfer some signed messages, but we have a blockchain that has its own consensus and lots of validators that check every transaction and that sign this transaction, and after that only the resulting transaction can be initiated in the target chain. So in general, it is more robust and more secure than just simple atomic swap using HTLC. But the outcome is very similar because we make transaction in one chain, and after some short period of time, we receive the resulting transaction on the target chain. And all this is done with checked safety and checked genuineness of the transaction.
Very cool. Awesome to learn a little bit more about other methods and atomic swaps as well. Thank you for that explanation. Now, with the Blueschain, there is its own validator network. I just want to touch on this a little bit. I know it's still very early days for this, but eventually Blueschain will have its own validator network, pretty much like its own stake pool operators that you see in the Cardano ecosystem. Can we talk about how potentially in the future validators would work on Blueschain?
Yeah. So as any proof of stake blockchain, Blueschain will also need its own validators. And the main mechanism of validators operation is already built in Cosmos SDK. So we will reuse most part of it. But there will be some specific features that we'll introduce in Blueschain on top of it. First, how it will look like for validators from user experience perspective. We plan to reuse our current available functionality of yield pools, where you can stake Blues tokens. And maybe I forgot to say that Blues token will be the native token of Blues chain, and all the transactions, all the transaction costs for cross-chain transactions will be paid in Blues, and Blues will be used as a fuel for these cross-chain transactions. So we already have a staking mechanism for Blues called yield pools, where Blues holders can stake their tokens and earn rewards on their tokens with high APR. When the validators feature will be launched, all people who stake their tokens at yield pools will also have possibility to delegate these tokens to some of the validator pools, or become a validator themselves and delegate these tokens to themselves and start acting as a validator. With this, there will be another stream of income. Together with the yield pool rewards, there will be validator rewards that will come from the cross-chain fees that will be paid by all the users, and they will go to validators as their rewards for their work, for the work of setting up and maintaining Blues nodes that will be run from the code that we will provide for validators. And for that, they will get rewards and actually will be able to earn actually passive income for helping Blues chain to operate.
Which is brilliant. That's another source of income for people that actually want to run a validator node. It's an opportunity for people there as well. It helps decentralize the Blues chain's validator network as well, with more people coming on board and becoming validators for it too. So all very exciting stuff. It's all coming down in the future. And another thing that's coming down once this is launched, actually, we should talk, what's the timeline for all of this? When are we going to see Blues chain launch?
Well, yes, the first step that we are planning to do is to launch a testnet release of Blues chain, and that will be done in a time frame of about a week. So actually, Blues chain testnet is already launched.
Right.
We are
okay.
currently, yeah, that's right. And of course, it's not public yet because we are in process of making the final QA tests and also polishing our cross-chain user interface that is internal for now. But when all this is done and all the checks are passed, then we'll open the testnet version of Blues chain to everybody to see how it works, actually, to help us find maybe some bugs there and to fix them as soon as possible. And in parallel with this, we are working, of course, on our production launch, which of course requires more efforts from us to make it in a secure way, to make it in a reliable way. And all this should be done also, I think, rather soon. Currently, according to our plans, it is about a month to launch the first version of Blues chain in production.
That's super exciting. Yeah, when you hear a lot of this stuff, you think, oh yeah, in 6 months, in a year's time, we'll see later when it launches. But a month is a very quick time frame.
Yeah, it is already developed, so
yeah,
you just need to make it secure enough and reliable enough to launch.
Okay. Is there a security audit that needs to be run before it's launched or anything like this?
Yeah, actually, it would be good. Of course, anyway, we will do one or several audits. I cannot say for now if it is possible before the first launch or not, but anyway, I can say that we have a very strong internal security team, which is constantly checking the current version of Blueshift protocol. And this team, of course, will also check the cross-chain protocol as well. And of course, all our technical team currently does its best to check the code, to run the test, and so on. So security will be provided anyway, but of course, formal audits are also needed, and they will be done very soon.
Okay, brilliant. Now, for those people that are just joining in on this AMA session with our CTO here from Blueshift, Igor Strakov, we're just talking about the brand new protocol that's going to be launched, the cross-chain protocol on Blues Chain, where you'll be able to do cross-chain swaps with any of the protocol blockchains that the Blues Chain is connected with. It's coming up very, very soon. And if you want to hear everything from the beginning of the conversation, you can listen to it here again on Twitter Spaces, or it is also published on Spotify. Just search for Blueshift Talks, and it will also be published on YouTube as well on the Blueshift YouTube channel. You can find all the links in our link tree in our bio. So click on that Blueshift profile and you'll be able to find it there. Now, moving right along, now what will the users actually see? What's the user experience like when they're doing this cross-chain swap? Will they be connecting to new networks or something like that? Or is it just integrated into the current interface? I'm trying to visualize how this will work.
Yeah, actually, the user experience will be very similar to what it is now. And all the cross-chain functionality will be built in the current user interface of Blueshift. And people will not need to connect to some specific networks other than they do now, because Blues Chain itself works internally under the scene. So you do not need to connect some wallets to it and so on. But of course, there will be some public interface to check the transaction status, for example, and so on. But in general, it is done under the scene, and all you need is just do as you do usually on Blueshift. For example, connect your MetaMask wallet on the source chain, and the only difference that you will see is that in the swap form, there will be possibility to select destination network. It will be selected from the list of supported networks. And after that, you will be able to initiate swap transaction. This is done with one transaction signed by MetaMask as usual, and nothing else should be done. You will get notification about the success of the transaction in source chain, and in a bit, you will see the result of the transaction in the destination chain, and that's all. After that, the resulting tokens will be there in your destination wallet on the destination chain. The same, yep.
It sounds easy enough. I'm just wondering how long that transaction will take, how long that process will take from one chain to another.
Yeah, I can say what we have now on our testnet and what you all will be able to see very soon. Currently, the time of cross-chain transaction is actually the same at the time of the transaction on the source and destination chains. So in general, it is like 2 or 3 times of the local transaction. For example, if currently on Milkomeda, the transaction takes like, for example, 10 seconds, then the cross-chain transaction will also take less than a minute.
Gotcha. Okay. Just trying to visualize that speed. So I've got an idea and concept of how it will look and how it may interact for a user in the interface and how long it will take now. So that's really good to know.
Yeah, that will be fast, and that is one of the major advantages that we are going to bring that cross-chain swaps should be fast. You will not wait for 15 minutes, for example, to solve the operation.
Which is brilliant. It's a big step up for compared to how it is now. Like when you're doing bridging or cross chains bridging at the moment, it does take quite a while to move assets over, and by the time you move something over, the price may have moved, and it's already too late to do a trade or a swap. So it's really good to know that it's a lot faster than what we may be already experiencing in the bridging space, for example.
That's right.
Okay. Now, we do have some questions from the audience as well. Now, this was submitted on Twitter. Now, if anyone that's listening, if you do want to ask any questions, you can do so by just clicking on the comment icon on your Twitter app there in the bottom right-hand corner. You can leave a comment there, or you can request speaker rights, and I can pull you up on stage and you can speak directly with Igor here about any questions you have. But this question here came from DJ Oberon. I think that's how you say it. Now, I'll just read it word for word what he said here. We agree that cross-chain on SwapDex's platform is not easy. At least it's more complicated and expensive than people think, especially if it is associated with transaction security fees and transaction speed. How does Blueshift achieve this, and the benefits of cross-chain for Blueshift itself? And we did cover this a little bit, but it's probably good to just answer it directly too.
Yeah, so starting from what it gives to Blueshift, of course, we think it will be a major step forward in terms of the functionality of the Blueshift DEX itself, because cross-chain swaps, I think now it becomes like a must for exchanges to allow this type of operations, because we see many new blockchains coming up, and many of them are getting popular, and people, of course, want to use all of them without any fuss of moving assets from one to another and so on. In terms of the security against the speed, yes, there is a trade-off there. And how we solve this is by using our Blues chain on top of Cosmos SDK and Tendermint consensus, which is first fast, and also it has an instant finality feature. Means that we do not need to wait for some time to understand that some transaction actually completed in the whole blockchain. When the transaction is confirmed, it is confirmed forever. So that's why we just need to reach the consensus, which, as I said, is fast. And after that, we are sure that the transaction is confirmed by all the validators. So this gives us sufficient security proof, because the number of validators, of course, will be numerous. It will be maybe 100 of validators when it all comes up. And with this, we've reach the needed level of security, but the speed will stay very close to the speed of actual proof-of-stake blockchain that we use.
That is brilliant. Thank you for that. Now, I think that is all the questions I can actually gather at the moment that don't overlap in regards to this AMA from the audience here. So do encourage anyone, if they do have any questions, to just pop a comment there. But I'll just recap just quickly what we just, the benefits of this Blues chain in general, so that everyone has a clear picture. So first off, there's no bridging of the assets. So we can still use bridges, of course, but Blues chain itself doesn't use bridges, and as a result, it also doesn't use wrapped assets. So we don't have that security concern there of another bridge that may be put in place. There also is that advantage of the aggregated liquidity across the different chains. So you can use an aggregated USDT, for example, and that in turn with the virtual pairs mechanism of Blueshift gives swaps a very low slippage. So you can have more bigger swaps and less chance of that slippage kicking in, and then you're losing some of your potential profits when you're doing a swap. And of course, the last one here is it's a lot faster, as fast or a little bit slower than the transactions on its own proof of stake chains that the Blueshift chain is connected to. So just a little bit slower because it needs to be processing the transactions on those various chains, because you're doing two chains, not just one, but still a lot faster than some of these bridges that you may see come into the ecosystem where you have to bridge, do transactions, then bridge, maybe bridge again. So it's a really good benefit there, as well as the fees that are all wrapped into the ecosystem there too. So I think that's a really good overview of everything that is around the Blues chain in general. Igor, is there anything else that we need to know about in terms of the Blues chain and what's coming up for us?
Yeah, actually, I maybe just wanted to mention another time the new role of Blues token and the new utility of our Blues token that it will achieve with the cross-chain launch. I can even say about a new life of Blues token, because with the launch of Blues chain, Blues token becomes a native like gas token for this chain. So with this, people will need to to buy some Blues tokens for every cross-chain transaction. This will be done automatically, so you do not need to buy some Blues tokens beforehand to make the transaction, because the Blueshift protocol itself will automatically buy the needed amount of tokens for you in the backend. But in essence, these tokens are bought for every cross-chain transaction. That gives another utility for Blues token to add to those that we have already. And also, what is important is that within Blues chain, we also support an insurance fund. And half of all the cross-chain fees will go to this insurance fund and actually stay there forever. So the more cross-chain transactions are done, the more Blues tokens will be locked in this insurance fund. This, of course, will give support to Blues token itself, because the floating supply of this token will decrease. But also, this gives another level of guarantees and security of the cross-chain protocol, because this insurance fund will be used in some bad situations when somebody lost some funds due to some bug or hack in the protocol. And this fund will be used to cover all the losses, and with this to maintain the Blueshift protocol operation and safety. But of course, we believe that this fund will not be used, and it will be forever accumulated there inside Blues chain, and these tokens will be locked forever.
That is a very cool extra feature. It's a very nice feature. And also the other one that you mentioned there, when you're doing a swap and you don't have Blues tokens to pay for the gas fees, it automatically incorporates it in. So I'm assuming if I'm doing like USDT to ADA, for example, it automatically will buy me some Blues tokens to pay for the transaction. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, because all cross-chain portfolios will have Blues tokens inside them, so it is always possible for the protocol to do an internal swap.
That's a huge time saver, because I always have to, at the moment, when using BNB, have a little bit of BNB token like just set aside within my MetaMask wallet, just to make sure it's there so I can do transactions. Otherwise, I have to like go to the exchange, like move some BNB, or I maybe by moving like USDT, and then I forget, I have to move some BNB. I have to go back and move that as well. So it's very cool that that is a incorporated feature there. So I absolutely love that one. That's a really nice usability experience improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. You will not need this in Blueschain.
Yeah, and it automatically has the fees there, so validators get paid their fees, etc., etc. Then, of course, the insurance thing too. Absolutely brilliant. Cool. Okay, I think that wraps up our session here. I've gone through all the questions here, and I've gone through quite a lot around the Blues chain as well. So I'm pretty excited about this. For anyone that is listening in on this and is interested in finding out more, there will be an article going out later today about it. So that will cover everything that was spoken about. And of course, keep an eye out for the testnet announcement as well, where you can get your hands dirty, play around with it. Igor, do you think we'll have a reward incentive testnet again?
Well, if I think we will have, of course, it's the question for our marketing team, but I will support this initiative, of course.
I'll bug Zena and see if there's any budget left. We've done quite a few of these at the moment, so maybe we've used up our budget at the moment. But fingers crossed there is. But either way, please keep an eye out for that testnet announcement and get your hands dirty and play around with these cross-chain swaps and see exactly how it works. Now, of course, if you did just join in on this conversation, listen back on it on the Twitter Spaces here. Check it out on Spotify. You just search for Blueshift Talks, or check out our YouTube channel. Search for Blueshift there, and you'll be able to find all these recordings. We'll get them up as soon as possible. Last but not least, if you check out our link tree, all the links are there as well, so we'll get you there that little bit faster. Any final words there, Igor?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for everybody who joined us, and stay tuned to our announcements, because the launch of cross-chain protocol is, of course, the major event for now, but we will continue working on other features. And one of the features that I want to highlight that will be launched after the cross-chain protocol, it will be single-sided liquidity provisioning user interface, which will make it easier for users to add tokens in a single-sided way, to just add one token to Blueshift and start earning rewards with one transaction, and without need to find where this can be done without price impact and so on. The user interface will do it for you. I believe it will make life much easier for liquidity providers, and will attract liquidity to Blueshift. And of course, very soon we will launch our analytics application, analytics dashboard, which is also completely developed and will be launched, I think, in the coming days. So there are new features that you will see, and also to mention cross-chain farming, which is also in our plans, which is also unique in DeFi. So lots of features, and stay tuned and just follow our announcements.
Busy, very busy indeed, Igor. It's really cool what your team are getting up to, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more of this, and so should all of you as well. And that will be the end of our session here. So it's a good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Make sure you check out our links, and we'll see you in the next AMA. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.